The sky burned orange and red as another explosion shook the ground. Yuna pressed her body flat against the broken wall and waited for the dust to settle. Her ears rang from the blast. Her hand shook as she held her medical bag close to her chest. The war between humans and the Valkyrie had lasted 3 years now. 3 years of death. 3 years of watching friends die in her arms while she tried to save them. Yuna was a field medic. Her job was to run into danger and pull soldiers back from death. She was good at her job. But lately, she wondered if being good at something so terrible was really something to be proud of. She looked around the destroyed building. It had been a Valkyrie outpost once. Now it was just broken stone and twisted metal. The human forces had pushed through this area an hour ago, leaving behind nothing but destruction. Yuna had stayed back to search for any wounded human soldiers who might have been left behind. The smoke made it hard to see. She pulled her mask tighter over her face and moved forward slowly. Her boots crunched on broken glass and rubble. Every few steps, she would stop and listen. In war, you learn to trust your ears more than your eyes. That was when she heard it, a small sound. So quiet that she almost missed it. It was not the groan of a wounded soldier. It was not the crackle of fire or the distant boom of weapons. It was something else. Something that made her heart stop dead. It was a cry. A child's cry. Yuna froze. That was impossible. This was a military outpost. There should be no children here. But the sound came again, weak and scared, from somewhere beneath the rubble to her left. She moved quickly now, forgetting about caution. She pushed aside broken pieces of wall and metal. The cry grew louder as she got closer. Her fingers bled as she dug through the sharp rubble, but she did not stop dead, and then she found her. A Valkyrie child. The girl was small, maybe 5 or 6 years old by human standards. Her skin was the pale blue color of all Valkyrie, and her large eyes were a deep purple. Those eyes looked up at Yuna with pure terror. The child was trapped under a heavy piece of metal that had fallen across her legs. Dark blue blood pooled beneath her. Yuna's breath caught in her throat. She had seen Valkyrie before, of course. She had seen them dead on battlefields. She had seen them as prisoners, their faces hard and hateful. But she had never seen a Valkyrie child. She had never thought about the fact that they had children at all. The girl tried to move away from Yuna, but the metal held her in place. She made a sound that needed no translation. It was the sound of a frightened child calling for her mother. Yuna looked around quickly. She was alone. No other humans were nearby. No Valkyrie either. Just her and this dying child. She knew what she should do. The rules were clear. The Valkyrie were the enemy. She should leave this child and continue her mission. She should search for human soldiers who needed her help. That was her duty. But as she looked into those purple eyes filled with fear and pain, she knew she could not do it. Yuna knelt down beside the child. She held up her hands, showing they were empty. She made her voice soft and gentle, the same voice she used when comforting wounded soldiers. "It is okay," she said slowly. "I will not hurt you. I want to help." The Valkyrie child did not understand her words. The two species had never bothered to learn each other's language. Why would they? They only spoke to each other through weapons. But perhaps the child understood Yuna's tone, because she stopped trying to pull away. Yuna looked at the metal beam trapping the child. It was heavy, but not impossible to move. She positioned herself and pushed with all her strength. The metal shifted. The child cried out in pain as the pressure changed. Yuna pushed harder, her muscles screaming in protest. Finally, the beam moved enough for the child to be pulled free. Yuna quickly examined the girl's legs. They were badly crushed. The bones were broken in several places. Dark blue blood continued to flow from deep cuts. Without treatment, the child would die. It might already be too late, but Yuna was a medic. Saving lives was what she did. She opened her medical bag and got to work. She did not know if human medicine would work on Valkyrie bodies. She did not know if she was helping or making things worse. But she had to try. She cleaned the wounds as best she could. She set the broken bones, using pieces of metal as splints. She wrapped the legs tightly in bandages to stop the bleeding. The child watched her the entire time. The fear in her eyes slowly changed to confusion. Why was this human helping her? Did she not know they were enemies? Yuna worked quickly. She knew she did not have much time. Other human soldiers might return, or Valkyrie forces might come looking for survivors. Either way, she and this child were in danger. When she finished treating the wounds, Yuna sat back and looked at her work. It was rough, but it would hold. The child had stopped bleeding. Her breathing was steady. She might actually survive. Now came the hard part. Yuna could not leave the child here. If human soldiers found her, they might kill her. If she was left alone, she would die from her wounds. There was only one choice. Yuna had to take the child with her. But where? She could not bring a Valkyrie child back to the human base. That would be madness. She would be arrested, maybe even executed for helping the enemy. And the child would certainly be killed or kept as a prisoner. Yuna thought hard. There was an old factory about 2 kilometers from here. It was in the no man's land between the two armies. Neither side used it. It would be dangerous to go there, but it was the only place she could think of where they might be safe. She looked at the child. "I need to carry you," she said, miming the action with her hands. "It will hurt, but I will be careful." The child seemed to understand. She nodded weakly. Yuna lifted the girl as gently as she could. The child was lighter than she expected. She weighed almost nothing in Yuna's arms. The girl cried out once as her broken legs shifted, but then she bit her lip and stayed silent. She was brave, Yuna realized. So young and already so brave. The journey to the factory was the longest 2 kilometers of Yuna's life. She had to move slowly to avoid being seen. Every few minutes, she had to stop and hide as aircraft flew overhead. The child stayed quiet the entire time, her face pressed against Yuna's shoulder. When they finally reached the factory, Yuna almost collapsed with relief. The building was old and broken, but it had walls and a roof. It would provide shelter. More importantly, it was empty. She found a small room in the back of the factory that looked safe. There was old cloth on the floor that she could use as bedding. She laid the child down gently and checked her bandages. They were holding. The bleeding had stopped. Yuna sat down against the wall, exhausted. She looked at the Valkyrie child, who was now looking back at her. Those purple eyes were still confused, but the fear was gone. In its place was something that looked like curiosity. "You must be hungry," Yuna said. She reached into her bag and pulled out a food bar. She had no idea if Valkyrie could eat human food, but it was all she had. She broke off a small piece and offered it to the child. The girl took it carefully. She sniffed it, then took a tiny bite. After a moment, she ate the rest quickly. She was starving. Yuna gave her more food and some water from her canteen. The child ate and drank everything. When she was done, she looked at Yuna and made a sound. It took a moment for Yuna to realize what it was. The child was trying to say thank you. Yuna felt tears form in her eyes. What was she doing? This was crazy. She was a human soldier helping an enemy child. If anyone found out, her life was over. But as she looked at this small, hurt, frightened girl, she knew she had made the right choice. The child pointed to herself and said something. A word, a name. "Ressa," she said. Yuna smiled and pointed to herself. "Yuna." The child tried to repeat the name. "Yuna." Close enough. Yuna said with a small laugh. As night fell over the factory, Yuna kept watch while Ressa slept. She thought about what she had done. She thought about what would happen next. She had no plan. She only knew that she would protect this child, no matter what it cost her. Somewhere out there, Ressa's mother was probably searching for her. She was probably filled with grief, thinking her daughter was dead. Yuna wondered what kind of person that mother was. Was she a soldier like Yuna? Did she hate humans the way most Valkyrie did? It did not matter. What mattered was that Ressa was alive. And Yuna would make sure she stayed that way. The war between humans and Valkyrie would continue. The killing would go on. But in this small, forgotten factory, a human woman and a Valkyrie child had found something that was supposed to be impossible. They had found a reason to trust each other, and that was just the beginning. 3 days passed in the abandoned factory. 3 days of hiding, of fear, of slowly building trust between two people who should have been enemies. Yuna had not slept more than a few hours at a time. She spent most of her energy keeping watch, treating Ressa's wounds, and finding food and water. The factory was far from both armies, but that did not mean it was safe. Patrols from both sides sometimes came through this area. One wrong sound, one moment of carelessness, and they would both be dead. Ressa's condition had improved. The little Valkyrie girl was stronger now. She could sit up on her own and even move around a little, though her legs were still badly hurt. Yuna had changed her bandages twice. The wounds were healing, but they would need proper medical care soon. Care that Yuna could not provide. The biggest surprise was how quickly they learned to communicate. Yuna and Ressa did not share a language, but they found other ways to understand each other. Hand signs, facial expressions, simple sounds that meant food, water, pain, sleep, danger. It was not perfect, but it worked. On the third morning, Yuna woke up to find Ressa sitting next to her. The child was looking at her with those big purple eyes. There was something in them that had not been there before. It was warmth, trust, maybe even affection. "Good morning," Yuna said with a tired smile. Ressa made a sound that Yuna had learned meant the same thing. It was a soft chirping noise that Valkyrie used as a greeting. Yuna had tried to copy it, but her human throat could not make the sound correctly. That always made Ressa laugh. Yuna checked Ressa's legs. The splints were holding. The swelling had gone down, but the bones would take weeks to heal properly. They could not stay in this factory forever. Sooner or later, they would be found. She had been thinking about this problem for 3 days. There was no good solution. If she brought Ressa to the human base, they would both be in danger. If she tried to take Ressa back to Valkyrie territory, she would be killed on sight. The only option was to keep hiding and hope for a miracle, but miracles were rare in war. Yuna opened her bag and counted what was left of their supplies. 2 food bars, half a canteen of water, some bandages and medicine. Not enough. They needed more, and soon. "I have to go out," she told Ressa, using hand signs to explain. "I need to find food and water. You must stay here. Stay quiet. Hide if you hear anyone coming." Ressa's eyes went wide with fear. She grabbed Yuna's arm and shook her head. She did not want to be left alone. Yuna felt her heart break. This child had already lost so much. Her home was destroyed. Her mother was nowhere to be found. And now the only person she trusted was about to leave her. "I will come back," Yuna said firmly. She put her hand over her heart. "I promise. I will always come back." Ressa looked at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, she let go of Yuna's arm. She nodded. She trusted Yuna's promise. Yuna left the factory and moved carefully through the ruined landscape. The war had turned this entire region into a wasteland. Buildings were destroyed. Trees were burned. The ground was covered in ash and rubble. It looked like the end of the world. She found an old supply depot about a kilometer away. It had been hit by bombs, but some of the supplies were still good. She collected cans of food, bottles of water, and some blankets. She also found a small radio. It still worked. She turned it on and listened. The news was not good. The war was getting worse. Both sides were preparing for a major battle. The fighting would move through this area soon. Very soon. They needed to leave before that happened. Yuna hurried back to the factory. Ressa was waiting exactly where she had left her. When she saw Yuna, her face lit up with relief. She made happy chirping sounds and reached out her arms. Yuna hugged her gently. "I told you I would come back." They shared a meal of canned vegetables and water. The food was cold and not very tasty, but neither of them complained. In war, you learn to be grateful for anything. As they ate, Yuna told Ressa about the radio broadcast. She did not know if the child understood the words, but Ressa seemed to understand the meaning. Her face grew serious. She knew they were in danger. "We have to move," Yuna said. "We cannot stay here any longer. I need to find somewhere safer for you." But where could they go? Yuna thought about this as she watched Ressa finish her food. There was one possibility. It was crazy and dangerous, but it might be their only chance. About 30 kilometers to the east was the border of neutral territory. A small planet called Mycon had declared itself neutral in the war. Neither humans nor Valkyrie were allowed to fight there. If they could reach Mycon, they would be safe. 30 kilometers. With a child who could barely walk. Through territory that was about to become a battlefield. It seemed impossible, but Yuna had stopped believing in impossible days ago. She had saved an enemy child. She had kept that child alive for 3 days. She would find a way to get them both to safety. "We leave tonight," she told Ressa. "When it is dark, I will carry you. We will move slowly and carefully. It will take a long time, but we will make it. Together." Ressa did not understand all the words, but she understood enough. She nodded and put her small hand in Yuna's larger one. She was ready. They spent the rest of the day preparing. Yuna packed their supplies into her bag. She tore strips of cloth to make a carrier so she could carry Ressa on her back. She checked their maps and planned their route. They would have to avoid main roads and travel through rough terrain, but it was possible. As the sun set, Yuna felt fear creeping into her heart. What she was about to do was more dangerous than anything she had ever done. If they were caught by humans, she would be executed as a traitor. If they were caught by Valkyrie, she would be killed as an enemy. There was no room for mistakes, but when she looked at Ressa, her fear faded. This child needed her. This child trusted her. That was all that mattered. "Ready?" Yuna asked. Ressa nodded. Yuna lifted her onto her back and secured her with the cloth straps. The child wrapped her arms around Yuna's neck and held on tight. They left the factory and stepped into the darkness. The first few hours went well. The night was cloudy, hiding the moon and stars. That made it hard to see, but it also made it hard for them to be seen. Yuna moved slowly and steadily, stopping often to rest and listen for danger. Ressa was a perfect passenger. She stayed completely still and silent on Yuna's back. The only sign that she was awake was her small hands gripping Yuna's shoulders. She was scared, but she did not cry. She did not make a sound. By midnight, they had covered about 10 kilometers. Yuna's legs ached and her back was sore, but she kept going. She would rest when they reached safety, not before. They were crossing a dry riverbed when Yuna heard the sound. It was the hum of engines. Vehicles were approaching from the east. She could see lights in the distance, getting closer. There was no time to run, no place to hide on the open riverbed. Una looked around desperately and spotted a large pipe that went under a destroyed bridge. It was their only chance. She ran to the pipe and crawled inside, holding Ressa close. The pipe was just big enough for them to fit. They lay still in the darkness, not daring to breathe. The vehicles came closer. Una could hear voices now. They were speaking the human language. It was a human patrol. "Check the riverbed," someone ordered. "Make sure no Valkyrie are hiding here." Footsteps came toward the pipe. Una pressed herself against the cold metal and closed her eyes. Ressa trembled against her back. If they were found, it was over. A flashlight beam swept across the entrance of the pipe. Una saw it through her closed eyelids. She held her breath. The light moved away. "Clear!" The soldier shouted. "Nothing here." The footsteps retreated. The vehicles started moving again. The sound of engines faded into the distance. Una let out a long, shaky breath. They had been lucky. So incredibly lucky. They stayed in the pipe for another hour, waiting to make sure the patrol was really gone. Then they continued their journey. Una's entire body was shaking from fear and exhaustion, but she forced herself to keep moving. They were still 20 kilometers from safety. They could not stop now. As the sky began to lighten with the first hints of dawn, they reached a small grove of surviving trees. Una decided to rest here during the day and continue that night. Traveling in daylight was too dangerous. She found a hidden spot among the trees and laid Ressa down gently. The child was exhausted but calm. She looked up at Una and made a soft sound. "What is it?" Una asked. Ressa touched Una's face with her small hand. Then she touched her own chest, right over her heart. Una understood the gesture immediately. "Thank you. I love you." Tears filled Una's eyes. She took Ressa's hand and held it against her own heart. "I love you too," she whispered. "And I will get you to safety. I promise." They slept through the day, hidden among the trees. When night came, they began walking again. The second night was harder than the first. Una's legs felt like they were made of stone. Every step was painful. But she kept going. Near midnight, something happened that made Una's heart soar. In the distance, she could see lights. Not the lights of vehicles or weapons. These were the lights of buildings. The lights of a city. Maikaon, neutral territory. Safety. They were almost there. Una found new energy she did not know she had. She walked faster, ignoring the pain in her legs. Ressa seemed to sense their goal was near. She lifted her head and looked at the lights with wonder in her eyes. By the time the sun rose, they had crossed the border. They were standing on neutral ground. The War Commander Talith stood in the ruins of what had once been Outpost 7. Her silver uniform was covered in dust and ash. Her pale blue face showed no emotion, but inside her heart was being torn apart. This was where her daughter had been. This was where Ressa had been staying while Talith led her troops in battle. It was supposed to be safe. It was supposed to be far from the fighting. But the humans had pushed through their lines faster than anyone expected. The outpost had been hit before evacuation was possible. Talith walked slowly through the destruction. Her soldiers followed at a distance. They knew better than to speak to their commander right now. They had all heard the news. The commander's daughter was missing. Probably dead. But Talith refused to believe that. Ressa was strong. Ressa was brave. She had to be alive somewhere. She had to be. For 3 years, Talith had fought this war against the humans. She had won many battles. She had killed many enemies. She had become one of the most respected commanders in the Valkyrie military. But none of that mattered now. All that mattered was finding her daughter. She stopped at a pile of rubble and knelt down. There was dark blue blood on the ground. Valkyrie blood. Her breath caught in her throat. Was it Ressa's blood? Was her daughter bleeding somewhere, scared and alone? "Commander," one of her officers said carefully, "we found something." Talith stood and followed the officer to another part of the ruins. There, in the dirt, were footprints. Human footprints. They led away from the outpost toward the west. "A human survivor?" Talith asked. "It appears so, Commander. The footprints are fresh, made within the last few days." Talith studied the prints carefully. They were small for a human. A female, perhaps, or a young male. The stride was uneven, as if the person had been carrying something heavy or someone. Her heart began to beat faster. "Follow these tracks," she ordered. "Find where they lead. I want to know who made them." Her soldiers moved quickly. Talith followed behind them, her mind racing with possibilities. What if a human had found Ressa? What would they do with a Velkari child? Kill her? Take her prisoner? The thought made Talith sick with fear and rage. The tracks led them about 2 kilometers to an old abandoned factory. The soldiers surrounded the building carefully. Talith entered first, her weapon ready. The factory was empty, but there were signs that someone had been here recently. Old cloth on the floor, arranged like bedding. Empty food containers. Water bottles. And more blood. More Velkari blood. Talith picked up one of the food containers. It was human food. Military rations. The kind that human soldiers carried. "Someone was keeping a Velkari here," she said quietly. "A human was keeping a Velkari here. But why? Why would a human care for a Velkari?" It made no sense. Humans hated the Velkari. They killed without mercy. They destroyed without thought. That was what Talith had always believed. That was what she had taught her troops. She found a small piece of cloth on the ground. It was stained with blood, but it had been cut carefully. Bandages. Someone had made bandages and used them to treat wounds. Velkari wounds. The evidence was clear. A human had found someone here. A wounded Velkari. And instead of killing them, the human had provided medical care. Had fed them. Had protected them. Talith did not understand. This went against everything she knew about humans. "Commander," an officer called. "The tracks continue. They lead east, toward neutral territory." Talith's eyes widened. Neutral territory. Mycon. If someone had taken Ressa there, she would be beyond Talith's reach. The Velkari were not allowed to enter neutral space. It would cause a political disaster, but Ressa was her daughter. Nothing would stop her from finding her daughter. "Prepare a small shuttle," Talith ordered. "I will go to Mycon myself, alone." Her officers looked shocked. "Commander, that is not wise. If you are caught in neutral territory, I know the risks," Talith interrupted. "But my daughter may be there. I will not leave her in enemy hands." She returned to the Velkari base and changed out of her military uniform. She put on simple civilian clothes that would help her blend in. Then she took the shuttle and flew toward Mycon. The journey gave her time to think. Her mind kept returning to the same questions. Who was this human? Why had they helped a Velkari? What did they want? Talith had been fighting humans for 3 years. She had seen them do terrible things. She had watched them bomb Velkari cities. She had seen them kill civilians without hesitation. She had lost friends, family, soldiers under her command. All because of human cruelty. But this human had saved someone, had healed someone, had risked their own life to bring a Velkari to safety. How was that possible? When she landed on Mycon, Talith moved carefully through the streets. The neutral planet was small but busy. Many different species lived here, trying to stay out of the wars that raged across the galaxy. Velkari and humans both came here sometimes, though they were careful to avoid each other. Finding Ressa would not be easy. Mycon had millions of residents and visitors. A small Valkyrie child could be anywhere. But Talith was determined. She would search every building, every street, every corner until she found her daughter. She started at the border crossing point. A helpful official told her that yes, a human woman had crossed into Mycon 3 days ago. She had been carrying a Valkyrie child on her back. The child appeared to be injured, but alive. Talith's heart almost exploded with relief. Ressa was alive. Her daughter was alive. Where did they go? She demanded. The official shrugged. I do not know. They walked into the city. That is all I can tell you. Talith spent the next 2 days searching. She went to hospitals, shelters, hotels. She asked everyone she met if they had seen a human woman with a Valkyrie child. Most people shook their heads. Some looked at her strangely. A Valkyrie looking for a human? That was unusual. Finally, on the 3rd day, she found them. It was a small medical clinic in a quiet part of the city. The clinic specialized in treating refugees from the war. When Talith walked in, she saw many wounded Valkyrie being cared for by doctors of different species. And in a corner of the room, sitting in a small bed, was Ressa. Talith stopped breathing. Her daughter was there. Right there. Alive. Healthy. Smiling at something. Smiling at a human. The human woman was sitting next to Ressa's bed, holding the child's hand. She was young, with dark hair and kind eyes. She was saying something that made Ressa laugh. The sound of her daughter's laughter was the most beautiful thing Talith had ever heard. Talith stepped forward. The human noticed her first. Her eyes went wide with recognition. She knew she was looking at a Valkyrie, an enemy, but she did not run. She did not scream. She simply stood up slowly and positioned herself between Talith and the bed. Between Talith and Ressa. She was protecting Ressa from her own mother. Wait, the human said quietly. Please, I can explain. Mama? Ressa's voice cut through everything. The little girl had spotted her mother. Her face lit up with joy as bright as the sun. Mama! Mama! She tried to climb out of bed, but her legs were still wrapped in bandages. She could not stand on her own. Talith rushed forward, pushing past the human, and scooped her daughter into her arms. Ressa, my Ressa, you are alive. You are safe. She held her daughter tight, tears streaming down her blue face. Ressa clung to her mother, making happy sounds, burying her face in Talith's neck. For a long moment, nothing else existed. Just a mother and her daughter, reunited at last. But then Talith looked up at the human woman. The woman who had saved her child. The woman who had risked everything to bring Ressa to safety. The woman who had stood between them, ready to protect Ressa from an unknown Valkyrie. Who are you? Talith asked. The human woman took a deep breath. My name is Yuna. I am a human medic. I found your daughter in the ruins of the outpost. She was badly hurt. I could not leave her there to die. You could have, Talith said. You should have. We are enemies. She is a child, Yuna replied simply. She was scared and hurt and alone. What kind of person would I be if I just walked away? Talith stared at her. She had no answer. In her world, enemies were enemies. You killed them, or they killed you. There was no room for kindness. No room for mercy, but this human had shown mercy. This human had shown kindness. And because of that, Ressa was alive. Why? Talith demanded. Why did you help her? What do you want in return? Yuna shook her head. I want nothing. I just wanted her to survive. That is all. Ressa squirmed in Talith's arms. She reached out toward Yuna and said something in a mix of Valkyrie and strange sounds that Talith did not recognize. Then she looked at her mother and pointed at Yuna. Yuna, Ressa said carefully, good, kind friend. Her daughter was calling a human her friend. Talith looked at Una with new eyes. She saw the tired face, the dirt-stained clothes, the bandages on her own hands from digging through rubble. She saw a woman who had given everything to save a child who was not her own. A child who belonged to the enemy. You carried her, Talith said quietly. Through the war zone. To neutral territory. How far did you carry my daughter? About 30 kilometers, Una answered. It took 2 nights. We had to hide from patrols. Both human and Velkari. If we had been caught by either side, we would both be dead. Talith felt something strange in her chest. It was not anger. It was not hatred. It was something she had not felt in Y. The small room in the medical clinic felt crowded with tension. Talith sat on one side, holding Ressa in her lap. Una sat on the other side, keeping a careful distance. Between them was a lifetime of war, hatred, and distrust, but also something new. Something neither of them fully understood yet. Ressa had fallen asleep in her mother's arms. The excitement of the reunion had exhausted her. She slept peacefully, her small hand still reaching toward where Una sat. Even in sleep, she wanted to stay connected to both of the people she trusted most. Talith looked down at her daughter's sleeping face. Then she looked up at Una. The human woman sat quietly, waiting. She did not look afraid. She did not look defensive. She simply looked tired. Tell me everything, Talith said. From the beginning. I want to know exactly what happened. Una nodded and began to speak. She told Talith about the bombing of the outpost, about hearing the cry of a child in the ruins, about finding Ressa trapped under metal, bleeding and scared. She told her about the decision to help, even though it meant risking her own life. She told her about the days in the factory, about treating Ressa's wounds with the little supplies she had, about teaching each other simple words and gestures, about how quickly fear had turned into trust. She told her about the journey to neutral territory, the 30 kilometers through war zones, the patrols they had to hide from, the nights of walking with Ressa on her back, the moment they finally crossed the border. Talith listened without interruption. Her face showed no emotion, but inside she was struggling. Every word Una spoke challenged everything she believed about humans. Every detail proved that this enemy was capable of kindness, sacrifice, and love. When Una finished, silence filled the room. Outside, the sounds of the city continued. Life went on. But in this small space, 2 enemies faced each other with new eyes. I have one question, Talith finally said. Her voice was low and intense. Why did you stay? Una looked confused. What do you mean? After you brought Ressa here? After you knew she was safe? Why did you stay with her? You could have left. Gone back to your people. Pretended none of this happened. No one would have known. Una was quiet for a moment. She looked at Ressa's sleeping face, and her expression softened. I could not leave her alone, Una said simply. She was scared. She was in a strange place with no one she knew. She kept looking around for me. When I tried to leave the first time, she grabbed my hand and would not let go. She cried. I could not do that to her. So I stayed. Talith felt something in her chest tighten. This human had stayed. For a child that was not hers. For a child of the enemy. She had stayed. You love her, Talith said. It was not a question. Una did not deny it. I did not plan to. But yes, I love her. She is brave and kind and strong. She trusted me when she had every reason not to. How could I not love her? Talith looked at her daughter again. Ressa had changed during their time apart. She was not the same frightened child who had been left at the outpost. She was different now, stronger, more confident. And when she had seen Yuna, her face had shown pure happiness. Yuna had not just saved Ressa's life. She had given her something precious. She had given her hope. "I have killed many humans," Talith said suddenly. Her voice was hard but honest. "In battle, in raids. I have ordered attacks on human positions. I have celebrated human defeats. I have hated your kind with every part of my soul." Yuna met her eyes without flinching. "I know. I have treated soldiers who were wounded by Valkyrie weapons. I have watched friends die because of Valkyrie attacks. I have reasons to hate your kind too. But you saved my daughter. Yes. Why? Truly, why?" Yuna took a deep breath. "Because war has rules that make no sense. We are told to hate each other. We are told that the enemy is evil and must be destroyed. But when I found Ressa under that rubble, I did not see an enemy. I saw a child, a scared, hurt child who wanted her mother. And I thought, what if it was a human child in that situation? Would I want a Valkyrie to walk past and let them die?" She paused and looked directly at Talith. The answer was no. I would want them to be helped. I would want them to be saved. So I did what I would want someone else to do. That is all. Talith felt the hard shell around her heart begin to crack. For 3 years, she had told herself that humans were monsters, that they were incapable of compassion, that the only way to deal with them was through violence. But here was proof that she had been wrong. "Your people would call you a traitor," Talith said, "for helping the enemy, for risking so much for a Valkyrie child." "Probably," Yuna agreed. "I cannot go back to the military. Not after this. My life as a soldier is over. You gave up everything. Your career, your home, your safety, for a child you did not know." Yuna smiled sadly. "I did not give up everything. I gained something too. I gained a clear conscience. I know that when the moment came, I did the right thing. That matters more to me than any uniform or title." Talith was silent for a long time. She stroked Ressa's hair gently as she thought. Her mind was full of conflict. Everything she had believed was being challenged. Everything she had fought for suddenly seemed less certain. "In my culture," Talith finally said, "there is a concept called blood debt. When someone saves the life of a family member, you owe them a debt that can never be fully repaid. Your life becomes connected to theirs forever." Yuna tilted her head. "What does that mean for us?" "It means I owe you everything. My daughter's life, my own happiness, my future. All of it exists because of what you did. In the old traditions, I would have to serve you, protect you, give my life for yours if necessary." Yuna looked uncomfortable. "I do not want that. I did not save Ressa so you would owe me something. I do not want a debt. What do you want then?" The question hung in the air. Yuna thought about it carefully before answering. "I want the killing to stop," she said quietly. "I am tired of treating wounds that should never have been made. I am tired of watching people die for reasons they do not understand. I want this war to end." Talith laughed bitterly. "You want peace? With the Valkyrie? That is impossible. Our peoples have hated each other for generations. The war will continue until one side destroys the other. That is how it has always been. Does it have to be?" The simple question hit Talith like a physical blow. She had never considered any alternative. War was just the way things were, the way they had always been. But Yuna was looking at her as if another path was not only possible, but obvious. "Look at your daughter," Yuna said. "She trusts me. She calls me friend. She does not see me as an enemy. Children do not know how to hate unless we teach them. Ressa learned to trust a human because no one told her not to." Talith looked at Ressa. The child was still asleep, peaceful and content. She had been through terrible things, but she was not broken. She was not filled with hatred. She had chosen trust over fear. You think peace is possible? Talith asked. I think it is more possible than we believe. We have been fighting for so long that we have forgotten how to do anything else. But the war started somehow. It can end somehow too. Talith shook her head slowly. Even if I believe that, I am just one commander. I cannot stop the war by myself. You are not by yourself, Una said. You have a story to tell. A story about a human who saved a Valkyrie child. A story that proves our kinds can show each other kindness. That story has power. More power than any weapon. Talith was quiet. She looked at Una, then at Ressa, then at her own hands. Hands that had ordered attacks. Hands that had signed death warrants. Hands that were stained with blood. Could those same hands work toward peace? I do not know if I can change anything, Talith admitted. The High Council will not listen to me. They are committed to winning the war, no matter the cost. Then make them listen, Una said. Tell them what happened here. Let them see what I see. What Ressa sees. Show them that there is another way. Talith stood up, still holding Ressa. She walked to the window and looked out at the neutral city. Humans and Valkyrie walked the streets below, passing each other without violence. Here, in this small place, peace already existed. Maybe it could exist elsewhere too. If I do this, Talith said, if I go before the council and speak of peace, my career will be over. My reputation will be destroyed. Other Valkyrie will see me as weak, as a traitor. Maybe, Una agreed. But your daughter will see you as brave, as someone who chose love over hate. Is that not worth more than any reputation? Talith turned to look at Una. The human woman met her gaze steadily. There was no judgment in her eyes. No pressure. Just quiet conviction. You are strange, Talith said. Unlike any human I have ever met. Maybe you have not met enough humans. For the first time, Talith smiled. It was small and brief, but it was real. Perhaps you are right, she said. Perhaps I have only seen what the war wanted me to see. Perhaps there is more to your kind than I ever knew. Ressa stirred in her arms. Her purple eyes opened, and she looked up at her mother. Then she looked at Una and smiled. Together? Ressa said. It was one of the words Una had taught her. A simple word, but it meant everything. Talith looked at her daughter, then at the human who had saved her. Two enemies. Two strangers. Connected now by something stronger than war. Together, Talith agreed, and in that moment, a new future began to take shape. The High Council chamber was vast and intimidating. 12 of the most powerful Valkyrie in the Empire sat in a curved row of tall chairs. Their faces were stern, their eyes cold. They had been fighting humans for 3 years, and they had no intention of stopping. Talith stood alone in the center of the chamber. She wore her formal military uniform, cleaned and pressed. Her medals and honors hung on her chest. She looked every part the respected commander she had been. But inside, she was terrified. Ressa was not with her. The child was safe, being cared for by a trusted friend. Talith had not wanted to bring her daughter into this dangerous room. What she was about to do could destroy her career and her reputation. She did not want Ressa to witness that. Commander Talith, the head counselor said. His voice echoed through the chamber. You requested this audience. You said you had something important to share with us. Something about the war. Yes, counselor, Talith said. Her voice was steady even though her heart was pounding. I have come to tell you a story, and to ask you to consider something that has never been considered before. The council members looked at each other with confusion. Stories? In the middle of a war? What was this commander thinking? Proceed, the head counselor said with a wave of his hand. Talith took a deep breath and began. She told them everything. About the bombing of Outpost 7, about her daughter being trapped in the ruins, about the human medic who found her, about how that human had risked everything to save a Velkari child. She told them about the 3 days in the abandoned factory, about the bandages and the food and the careful treatment of wounds. She told them about the 30-kilometer journey through war zones, about the nights of walking, about the patrols they had to avoid. She told them about Mycon, about finding her daughter alive and healthy, about meeting the human woman who had saved her, about the words they had exchanged. When she finished, the chamber was completely silent. The council members stared at her with expressions ranging from confusion to anger to disbelief. Let me understand, one of the counselors said slowly. A human soldier saved your daughter. A human. Our enemy. Yes. And you believe this changes something? One act of kindness does not erase years of war. It does not bring back our dead. It does not heal our wounded planets. Talith nodded. You are right. One act does not erase anything, but it proves something important. It proves that peace is possible. It proves that humans are capable of the same compassion and kindness that we are. It proves that we have been wrong about them. An angry murmur rippled through the council. Wrong? Another counselor demanded. The humans have killed millions of our people. They have destroyed our cities. They have shown us nothing but cruelty and violence. How can you say we are wrong about them? Because war makes monsters of everyone, Talith replied. We have done the same things to them. We have killed their people, destroyed their cities, shown them cruelty and violence. In their eyes, we are the monsters. The war has made it impossible for either side to see the truth. And what is the truth, Commander? Talith straightened her shoulders. The truth is that we are not so different. Both sides have good people and bad people. Both sides have those who kill without thought and those who risk everything to save a stranger. The human who saved my daughter did not see an enemy. She saw a child who needed help. And she helped her. No human I have ever met in battle would have done that. But this one did. And if she exists, there must be others like her. The head counselor leaned forward. His expression was hard to read. What exactly are you proposing, Commander? I am proposing that we consider peace. The word echoed through the chamber like an explosion. Peace. It was a word that had not been spoken in the High Council for years. It was considered impossible, unthinkable, shameful. Peace? A counselor shouted. With the humans? After everything they have done? That is treason. It is not treason to want our people to stop dying, Talith said firmly. It is not treason to admit that this war cannot be won by either side. We have been fighting for 3 years. What have we gained? We have lost entire generations of our young. Our economy is in ruins. Our people are exhausted. And the humans are in the same situation. Both sides are destroying themselves. Better destruction than surrender, someone muttered. I am not talking about surrender. I am talking about negotiation, compromise, finding a way to end this conflict that does not require the complete destruction of one side or the other. Talith looked around the room at the faces of the council. Some were angry. Some were thoughtful. A few seemed almost hopeful. The human who saved my daughter asked me a question, Talith continued. She asked why the war had to continue. She asked if there was no other way. And I realized that I did not have a good answer. We fight because we have always fought. We hate because we have always hated. But no one can remember how this war started. No one can remember what we are really fighting for. We are fighting for our survival, the head counselor said. Are we? Or are we just afraid to stop? Are we so used to war that we have forgotten there is any other way to exist? The chamber was silent. Talith's words hung in the air, challenging everything the council believed. I was a loyal soldier, Talith said. I followed orders. I killed humans without question. I believed everything I was told about them. But then a human gave me back my daughter. A human showed me kindness when she had every reason to show me hate. And I cannot pretend that means nothing. She paused and looked at each council member in turn. My daughter is alive because of a human. My family exists because of a human. I owe everything to an enemy. And I have to believe that if one human can be kind, then others can too. If one human can choose mercy over violence, then peace is possible. The head counselor sat back in his chair. His expression had softened slightly. He looked tired, old. Perhaps he was as weary of war as Talith was. Even if we wanted peace, he said slowly, the humans would never agree. They hate us as much as we hate them. Perhaps, Talith admitted. But we will never know unless we try. We could send a message. Start a conversation. See if there are humans who want peace as much as we do. What do we have to lose? Our dignity, our honor, our reputation. With respect, counselor, what good is dignity if we are all dead? What good is honor if there is no one left to remember it? Another long silence followed. The council members looked at each other, communicating in glances and small gestures. Finally, the head counselor spoke. Your story is remarkable, Commander, and your courage in telling it is admirable. But you are asking us to do something that has never been done. You are asking us to reach out to our enemies and ask for peace. Yes, I am. It will be seen as weakness. It will encourage our enemies. It could lead to our destruction. Talith shook her head. Or it could save us. Both sides are exhausted. Both sides are looking for a way out. If we offer peace, the humans might accept. Not because we are weak, but because they are tired too. The head counselor stroked his chin thoughtfully. You said this human, this medic. She is still on Mycon? Yes, she cannot return to her own people. They would punish her for helping me. Then she has no home. No people, no purpose. She has purpose, Talith said firmly. Her purpose was to save my daughter. Now her purpose could be greater. She could be a bridge between our peoples. A symbol of what is possible when we choose kindness over hatred. The head counselor was quiet for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he smiled. You make a persuasive argument, Commander. I have been leading this war for 3 years, and I have grown weary of it. I have lost my own children to this conflict. My grandchildren have never known a day without fear. Perhaps it is time to try something different. Counselor, someone started to object, but the head counselor raised his hand. I am not promising anything, but I am willing to consider Commander Talith's proposal. We will send a message to the humans. A simple message. We will ask if they are interested in talking. Nothing more. If they refuse, we continue as before. But if they accept, he paused and looked at Talith. If they accept, we will have this brave commander to thank. Talith felt relief wash over her. It was not victory. Not yet. But it was a start. A single step on a long road. Thank you, counselor, she said. That is all I ask. A chance. A possibility. A hope. She left the chamber feeling lighter than she had in years. The war was not over. Peace was not certain. But for the first time, there was a path forward that did not lead to endless destruction. When she returned to Mycon, Yuna was waiting for her. Ressa was asleep in the next room. What happened? Yuna asked. Her face showed worry and hope in equal measure. Talith smiled. They listened. They are going to send a message. They are going to ask if the humans want to talk. Yuna's eyes widened. Really? They agreed to that? It took some convincing. But yes, the first step has been taken. Yuna sat down heavily in a chair. Tears formed in her eyes. I never imagined it would actually work. That anything I did would matter this much. Talith sat down next to her. Everything matters. Every small act of kindness. Every choice to help instead of hurt. You saved my daughter, and in doing so, you may have saved millions of lives. Both Valkyrie and human. They sat together in silence as the sun set over Mycon.